Hey y'all, new day, new verses as we continue on into Matthew 24. And I wanted to do a full quick over before we dig on into it, because I wanted to take it apart. There's a lot going on here, and there's a lot going on in the world right now. And it felt like something to share on from both a place of struggle and of hope. And so that's what I wanted to dig in here today. I know there's a lot going on. You have to be blind or purposely ignoring information to not see that there are trials and tribulations going on in this world. That there are struggles and pains and agony and sorrow and difficulties which are ramping to a point of sorrow for many. That it's too much to bear in so many ways. And so I wanted to dig in to what's in here today. Because it is talk about the end times. And there is a lot of reference to Daniel in here. And a lot of references to Isaiah and Joel about the day of the Lord. And so I wanted to just lay it all out as Jesus did. Verses 3 straight to 50. And then we'll go back through and dig it out. Because I know there are a lot of struggles going on. But I know in the face of them, there is hope. So let's get into it, and I think you'll see what I mean. Here we go. Chapter 24, verse 3. Later, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us what will happen. What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?" Jesus told them, "Don't let anyone mislead you. For many will come in my name, claiming, 'I am the Messiah.' They will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world, but all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. Then you will be arrested, persecuted and killed. You will be hated all over the world because you are my followers, and many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and will deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that all the nations will hear it, and then the end will come. The day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes destruction standing in the holy place. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of the roof must not go down into his house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for the nursing mothers in those days. And pray your flight will not happen in winter or on the Sabbath. For there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began. And it will never be so great again. In fact, unless the time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive. But it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then, if anyone tells you, 'Look, here is the Messiah,' or 'There he is,' don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders, so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, I have warned you about this ahead of time. So if someone tells you, 'Look, the Messiah is out in the desert,' don't bother to go and look. Or, 'Look, he's hiding here,' don't believe it. For as lightning flashes in the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. Just as the gathering of vultures show that there's carcass nearby, so these signs indicate that the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of those days, the sun will darken, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then at last, the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven, with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a mighty blast of a trumpet, and they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven, Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, the people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. 2 men will be working in the field, one will be taken and another left. 2 women will be grinding flour at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. So you, too, must keep watch, for you don't know when the day your Lord is coming, or what day your Lord is coming. Understand this, if a homeowner knew exactly when a burglar was coming, he would keep watch and not permit his house to be broken into. You also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected. A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibilities of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns to find that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put the servant in charge of everything he owns. But what if the servant is evil and thinks, my master won't be back for a while, and then he begins beating the other servants, partying and getting drunk? The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant into pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I wanted to lay it out fully there because, well, he speaks for himself, obviously, and there's a lot here. But as far as what I've been seeing in the world, is, every generation, like I said last week, every generation is supposed to be in this place of hope that we will see God return in our lifetime. That we are to be the generation ready and waiting and hoping that he will come through the door at any moment. I mean, there's a reason that it comes with parables right after it, talking about the 10 bridesmaids, about keeping that fire going and that burning going, that you chase after the Lord. Because we're finding more and more, or at least I am when I look at these things, I do see the hope of many growing cold, the love of many growing cold. That there's this tendency to want to rip each other to shreds and cut each other down. And, well, you're not my way of doing it, so you're evil. I don't agree with you completely, so you're a heretic. I don't believe, so I'm going to cut you down. And this love, I think, isn't just talking about the world, because the world doesn't know anything about love. It has a superfluous, a reference for it that's not quite there. They experience love, but they don't know it, not intimately. Not eros or things like this of childish love. I'm talking real agape love. Love where you put others before yourself. Love where you're willing to die in their place. Love where you're not interested in playing the game that the world plays, but sharing the love God has for us, because he is good and worthy to be praised. And because with the trials and tribulations going on anymore, you don't really have to spend a ton of time researching what's going on to see Russia invading Crimea, China and Russia on the rise again, which kind of makes me laugh, admittedly, because I think about the 90s and 2000s when, one group's agreeing, oh no, Russia's going to be the one referenced in Daniel, and another group, no, it's going to be the Chinese referenced in Daniel, and it feels like God's going, hey, you're both pretty, how about you have both? Similar with the pestilence and famine kind of combo of the 1-2 punch between COVID, the restrictions, and everything else. See, it seems to me that there is this cyclical nature. Wars come. They rise, they fall. These things that Jesus talked about for himself, knowing that there will be famines and earthquakes, the war, conquest, death, famine, the 4 horsemen, are just another tragic day in human history. Just another tragic day when we've decided that we want to be the ones to tell God and others who he is. in form trying to be God ourselves and yelling at anyone who points out that's not okay. And so as we go in and we see these moments of struggle and pain and trial, as we do have right here in 29 a reference to the day of the Lord, a day of those moments where God is going to see to it, not allow the behavior that's going on. He's going to call it out. We need to put our hearts into a place where we can let him call it out in us. Because the war and the battle is not flesh against flesh and blood against blood. Paul himself said that. We do not war against flesh and blood. We war against principalities and spirits. To say nothing of the fact that murdering each other like children hasn't done anything for us in the thousands of years we've been on this planet. So why would it change anything now? It doesn't. We use it as an out. We use it as a way to justify living by the sword and dying by the sword and acting in hate and malice and loathing of our fellow brothers and sisters. Because even if you are not somebody who calls upon the name of the Lord, you are still his creation. An image bearer, made in his image. We are meant to have each other, to need each other, to love each other. And so when these times of struggles and trials and tribulation and attacking each other rise up, we have to take a moment to say no. To not play it by that way. And it makes me think about the path of the exile. Something we see in Numbers and something we see in what Jeremiah spoke. Something Daniel and his 3 friends lived out. That we are not meant to supplicate to the point where we're just going along to getting along and end up looking like the domineering tyrant spirits that are over us. Same time, we're also not supposed to war to the point of committing the same horrible crimes that were done by the people who are now oppressing us. Although it is human nature that the oppressed eventually become oppressors themselves, we as followers of Christ are not allowed to do that. It's not that we shouldn't, it's that we're straight up not allowed to. Our lives are not our own, they're his. We are bought by the blood of Jesus. So we don't get to make these choices. To say, oh, well, I'm just going to off them. No. We are supposed to walk out the path of the exile. The path that says, good king, live forever. I'm not playing your game. We're supposed to work for the benefit of the Babylon we're in. That is what Jeremiah says. We are supposed to not work that all of it may prosper. Because remember, we're helping others. We're living a life that reflects his love. A love that did not come to take life, but to give it in its place. There's a reason Jesus himself says that the greatest form of love anyone can show for their brother is to lay down their life for them. And if you're going to go for a minute looking at natural law, you cannot give anybody the right you do not have, then we do not have the right to allow anyone to take life, because we cannot give it. We can't. Even when you put 2 people together who love each other dearly and try to make a baby, how many stories do you have where that just didn't happen? Because God is the one who decides these things. As we're going through 24 and we're seeing this divide, like in the time of Noah. So we're seeing this one side of the world that doesn't notice what's going on, doesn't know the heartache, the pain, the death, the destruction, people being rended. They don't see what we are doing to children, sacrificing them on an altar of power and fear. They don't see what's going on. And yet those who have been blessed with the spirit of discernment are seeing it and their hearts are breaking. And many want to war against it, because why wouldn't you? It's evil. It's evil to see what's being done to those who are innocent of what they're being accused of. Oh, well, you don't want to get the jab, so we're just going to send you to jail. Happening in Australia right now, happening all over the world. You're not doing it my way, so be damned. How childish can you get? Because that's not how we're supposed to live. In any way, shape, or form. And if nothing else, we should be rejoicing. Not because of the trials and the tribulations, but because we know our God is that much sooner to come home. Knowing that our God will see us through, will help us, will strengthen us when we rest in him. The 7th day in Genesis is not given a place of evening and morning the next day. like there is for the first 6 days. Genesis speaks quite clearly that we are supposed to be in an eternal place of rest, not doing nothing. That's not what it means by rest. By simply laying down those fears, laying down those moments, putting down the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Saying, I don't want to define what good and evil look like. I want God to tell me what it does. I want Him to do it, because vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And if we truly believe that God is all-powerful, then when we do what we're told by Him and live, mountains will move. It's not a matter of us bringing the shovel. It's a matter of us simply doing what we're told. If He says bring the shovel, bring the shovel. If He says bring tea, bring tea. If He says clay pots and torches, bring clay pots and torches. If He tells the widow to go ask your neighbors for all of their pots so that it can be filled up with oil, go and do that. Name it. Go dip yourself in the water 7 times. It's these simple places of saying, I don't quite get it. I may not quite understand it. But since when has understanding been part of the human job description or existence description? Yes, Psalms does say it is Proverbs, it is the glory of God, or it is the glory of God to hide things and the blessing of kings to find them out. We do get to discover these things. That is very true. But we don't get to define what is good and what is evil. Because the moment we start doing that, we fall into the same trap that all of humanity has. I'm going to define it for me and my tribe. Screw them and theirs. Missing entirely the fact that we are one species. Human. So this question of my tribe is better than your tribe or your way, no. We are all human beings, meant to love each other. Not the behavior, not the sin, but the person, the sinner, the broken human being that we all are in desperate need of a Savior. Because Jesus said it Himself, He did not come for those who think they are well. He came for those who know they are sick and need Him. And in the broken world we're living right now, if you don't see a sickness, I pray both that you would continue to be covered in the shelter of His wings and that He would open your eyes to what needs to be prayed for. Because as it stands right now in this moment, one of two things, almost a Pascal's wager moment, if you will. One, this is the cyclical nature of humanity repeating itself ad nauseum, where we go, I'm God, you're not, screw them. Or, Jesus is on His way home. That is the cut and dry of it. It is either another tragic day in human history, at which point are you really going to contribute to it, or are you going to make it better by living the love and life that we are given? Or Jesus is on His way home, and we need to be pointing out to everybody that in places where your heart wants to grow colder, say no. Say, I will not bow to hatred. I will not bow to fear. I will not bow to the behaviors of this world which have been destroying it since human beings 1 and 2 partook of the wrong fruit. That's the core of it here. Jesus came to set it right. Are we going to trust Him to be God and do it His way or not? Because He lays it out very succinctly. And in the 4 Gospels, 4 beautiful accounts, each conveying different information and ideas. Matthew, where the kingdom is. John, where the authority lies. Mark, the question of where we actually follow Him. Luke, the layout of everything as a Greek research document. Are we going to let Him be God or not? Because that is the question that all of humanity has been wrestling with and struggling with since human beings 2 and 3, when Cain decided to kill Abel. Well, and rather than do better, I'm just going to off the guy I don't like. How pitiful. And I don't mean that in a cast-down sense. I mean truly how heart-rending and pity-inducing that humanity would still be doing the same thing now. This massive divide, this chasm, which many people are saying, well, I mean, we're trying to find middle ground, but at this point, middle ground is we're not okay with killing other human beings. And yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's painful to see what this world is becoming. It is painful to go through it, but such is the nature of birth pains. They are agonizing. They are taxing. They are trying. And there is so much joy that comes after the time they have passed, when you're holding that little one. So while we are in this season of birth pains, of the now and the not yet, I implore you, chase after the Lord. Lay down those struggle places of pain and anger and heartache and sorrow, where we allow fear and malice to cause us to become the very same types of people that we complain about doing it. We are called to live the path of the exile, because that is what we are. When we are His, we are sojourners. This is not our home. We are waiting for kingdom come. That is why the prayer is, your kingdom come, your will be done. We're waiting for our God to come home. We are passing through this playground as a trip to make it. We are passing through the valley of the shadow of death. A death of one way of doing it, as God creates all things new. So while we're passing through it, don't camp here. While we're passing through it, do not surrender to the enemy. While we are passing through these birth pains and into the moment of new creation where God pours out life, do not bow to the way of the world. Because playing like that, beating on each other, is exactly what Jesus calls out there at the end of the chapter. An evil servant who's not interested in doing what's right, just interested in getting drunk and crapping all over life. And that's not what we're meant to do. It's not even what we're allowed to do. And I think we'll probably keep going over this and digging into the parables that come with, because God wraps it up in the idea of the final judgment in chapter 25. And it's something that's coming either way. The question is, quite simply, do you want to live the love God has for you? Or do you want to be cast out into the place of weeping and gnashing of teeth? How many people are already there? How many people are in places where it would be easier to say, no, I just hate them and write them off? Where the love grows cold. Maybe easier, but it's not right. The real challenge is when we put our heart before the Lord and ask Him to make in us a new heart, to circumcise the heart of stone from us and give us a heart of flesh where His Torah is written on it. So that living the love we're shown is not a task or an argument of morality or this childish game of, oh, I'm going to make sure the scales are balanced. I did a bad thing, so I'll do a good thing. No. Fruit of the tree, health of the plant. Your character, His being, shaping your character anew, is where that fruit comes from. So are you going to let Him prune you back, or the world? Because that is the question that has been laid out for 2,000 years, folks. Are you going to let God be God, or are you going to try and take His job? Because He honors your free will. And if you want to keep saying, no, I'm God, He'll say, okay, and let you live with the consequences of it. The hell on earth, swept away from His creation at the end, and leaving them there with the choices they've made. Because God wants us. He doesn't need us. He wants us. I think it's about time we start wanting Him. Start chasing after Him, knowing that He'll see to every need. We just got to let Him be God and love the way He loves us. Laying our lives down, taking up His yoke, picking up our cross and following our King. From places of darkness into places of light that we see in Revelation. The army of the Lord, made up of people from all over, praising and knowing that He's God. How beautiful that is. I'll see you guys tomorrow as we pick up into chapter 25 with the parable of the 10 bridesmaids and just what it looks like to keep that flame burning and to not let hope and love grow cold. I'll see you guys then. May His favor be upon you. Know that you are loved and know that He'll see you through. You just got to trust Him to be God. Because humans, We suck at it. I'll see you then.